the hardest things were to really look at myself. And this is really where the work is, and it's always with yourself. The most difficult work has probably been for me in the last 5, 6, 7 years. Questions like, well, who am I? They have guided me to what it is that who it is that I want to be. The first was understanding that you are not just a physicality. That's the first thing to grasp. You are not a physicality. And just like some of the speakers said yesterday, I believe it was Mr. Green who talked about, there is a soul and it's 22 grams. I think they've measured that in body weight. That is really who you are. And connecting to who that person really is, what that essence is all about, you begin to realize, oh my God, I am not at all who I thought I was. And I'm purposely being vague because I don't necessarily want to tell you who I am, other than to say that who I am here on earth in this lifetime and the mistakes that I have made, on some level I knew better not to make those mistakes. Okay? But we do. We experiment. We create. As far as the meaning of life, they would never tell me what that was exactly. All they would say, it just is, you are creating your own adventure. Okay? So again, the responsibility is on me. As far as mentoring, to want to talk and to speak, the idea was to just keep it very, very simple. To just share their perspectives and let the people do whatever they wanted with it. And it doesn't matter whether anyone believes it or not. People know truth. People know bullshit. Eventually it all comes to the surface. It has to. Because all of you are just like me. You all know better. You know what's real. It's just a question of detaching ourselves from our addiction to physicality. And that's what it is now. It's become an addiction because the focus is on the physicality. We're not objective anymore. As a soul, when you have an out-of-body experience and you detach from your physical form, you are completely objective. You have a 360-degree peripheral view. Okay? And that's because you're objective. You're not addicted. You're not stuck in the body or addicted to the body. And that's the part that they have been working on with me the most, is to actually feel and know that essence of myself as much as possible. So when we talk about mentoring, the mentoring is to get us from where we are here to self-empowerment. That's what I'm talking about. Once we have achieved self-empowerment, and it won't take long, folks. It really won't take long. We will know exactly what to do because we are spiritual beings. We are eternal. There is no age to us. And that's not a metaphysical blind. That is a reality. So the mentoring is to help us move out of our addiction to physicality into full power as spiritual beings. And it isn't full of dogma. It isn't any of that. It's all about introspection, voluntary introspection. That's what it is.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Collier. Thanks for being here today. I wanted to ask you something about something you mentioned in your interview before. You mentioned that an ancient race called the Patal created human beings probably so long ago. I wondered if you could just elaborate on that, because I always just wondered about it ever since you said it. Thanks.
It is believed that an ancient race, some of them call them the founders, other cultures call them the Patal, created not only the wormholes, but created most of the physicality in what we know as our universe. Because as they travel, they are finding civilizations and the ruins of civilizations far beyond anything that even they know. And we're talking 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th density space travelers who are traveling not only in moving in our physicality and other physicalities, but even their own. The wormholes is the best example that I've been given. No advanced space race has any idea how they were actually built, but we know that they exist. In fact, there are several that have snapped connecting our galaxy to some of the other nearby galaxies. They've snapped, and no one knows how to fix them because we don't even know how they were built. So.
Hi, I'm Dan Bender, the one who's working on the streaming, and I was asked by the streaming audience, which is now up to 1,500 members currently watching, and I think we've probably had over 10,000 have tuned in on this particular segment, and I picked, thank you. I've kind of picked 3 quick questions, hopefully they're quick, that I was asked to pass on. They're randomly chosen, so they may not be the best ones we've got out there, but what the heck. One of the first ones was, what free energy devices do you know about?
One I know of is magnetic. It's essentially was invented by a gentleman in Tennessee that was just a bit larger than a shoebox. And it was generated by magnetics. And it had an engine inside of it, and it spun. Once you started it, it would power a home completely independent no matter where it was. And I understand that the gentleman and the technology vanished about 8 years ago. He tried to get a patent on it, and that's when he basically went off the grid.
Okay, next question.
Because he demonstrated that technology. I just wanted to finish. Okay. He actually demonstrated that technology.
Okay.
And that he had began building that technology back in 1976.
Second question I have is, can mentoring happen on the internet? Now, I have to admit, I wasn't completely paying attention to everything because I was so busy with everything on the internet, but
I don't know.
That's the question I have.
That's a great question. I don't know.
Okay.
I wouldn't see why not.
Okay, I guess we have to figure it out. My little side jobs I've got to do. Anyway, last question I have here so I can let some of the other folks get back in here. How do you deal with the greed issue?
I don't have an answer for that.
Okay.
I mean, what is greed? That they'll never have enough? It's basically grounded in fear, I would think. Fear of loss, fear of abstinence, fear of not having enough, fear of loss. To me, that's what greed is. It's just a fear. Can it become an addiction? Apparently it has. But I personally don't have an answer for that.
Well, thank you from the internet audience.
Okay, thank you.
I just had, you had mentioned about possible coming changes, like on a geological level. To me, it seems so chance. Like I'd appreciate maybe some thoughts on your thoughts on. Do we just trust our intuition as far as where to go, what to do, how to plan for something like that, or it seems a rather daunting thing to try to get your head around.
Well, you know, change occurs all the time, and you do things intuitively all the time as well, whether you realize it or not. You might change the way you go home one day and do something different, and then when you get home you find out that right where you would have been there was a horrific car crash. That in fact just happened to my wife. And she did something completely out of the ordinary for her. And she would have been right there. So, you know, everybody has their guides, everybody has their own intuition. I'm not always the most intuitive at times either. But it's just, it's the only way I know to answer this is you just learn to trust yourself. It could be that you'll be guided to go out of town when something happens. I don't have that answer. Or you will be right where you don't think you need to be, but you're going to be there for a very, very good reason. And out of it will come out a self-empowerment that you never would have had before. We all have our own paths, and we are all creating our own realities. And we all have our own personal agendas for learning and growing and becoming who we are. Your experience is going to be very different than mine. And I don't know how to tell you. I mean, hey, if I had a hard date, but I never do, and I don't get a hard date. And I've made that mistake in the past about giving hard dates, when in fact they were probabilities. So the fact is, I don't know either, but you just have to trust that you will be exactly where you need to be when you need to be there. And I know that, that's kind of a foo-foo, lolly-la answer, but I don't, that's my own experience as well, that I just have to pray and hope that, have faith that I'll be exactly where I need to be.
I appreciate that. That's pretty much how my take on it, and I just wanted to kind of see what your thoughts were on that, because to try to take it from a mental perspective and plan and get out maps and seems a little absurd to me, and that's kind of going the other direction in the trusting the flow of life. So I appreciate that answer.
Exactly, and personally, I wrestle with that all the time. I try to have backup plan to backup plan to backup plan to backup plan, and I spend all this energy doing this, and it goes completely a different direction. So.
How you doing? Thank you so for being here. I just had a question. When you mentioned the thing about the 47 levels of government, which are just triggering
Levels
something.
of security
Of
clearance.
security, yeah, that the president doesn't even know, that he's not really in charge. This happened 46 years ago, of course, but I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on the purpose of President Kennedy's assassination? I just was curious about that, if you had, wondering.
No, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. I just, ooh, man. Okay, I will tell you my perspective on that. Eisenhower told Kennedy about 54. So Kennedy knew, and he told Bobby, obviously. One of the things that happened, and this has been documented through the great work that Dr. Stephen Greer has done with the Disclosure Project, is that most of the extraterrestrial knowledge and technology and exchange of technology went black 3 weeks after Eisenhower knew about it. So he didn't even know where it was. And this has been confirmed by one of his chief of staff, a brigadier general. It's Langdon, I believe it is. Langdon. So he shared all this with John Kennedy. And apparently where they felt the hub of the loss of where this technology had gone and how far it went black was something called the Special Operations Coordinating Group, which is part of the National Security Council. And what's interesting to note is that the first thing John Kennedy did when he took office was sign a presidential directive abolishing the Special Operations Coordinating Group. Now, no one knows exactly who they are, but they're not only connected to the intelligence, but also to all the black programs, to the secret space program, and everything else. There is some conjecture that these people are the governors of the Federal Reserve, because they control the money, and it's really all about the money. That's conjecture, though. I don't know for a fact. But what's interesting to note is that they had connections everywhere to everything, because all the intelligence from above would come to them, and then they would decide which information the president was supposed to get. Again, those layers of security clearances. What's interesting to note is after the assassination, the very first thing Johnson did when he got back into the White House was recreate the Special Operations Coordinating Group, now known as Special Group, in the National Security Council. That's my take on it.
And that's awesome. But that time during the 60s, of course, there's like 4 more. Are they all like just kind of series of random events, or are they all different, like, King and Bobby and, are they just all random occurrences of lone nuts, like, James Earl Ray and all those guys in Surrey, or are they just a part of that whole thing?
I think that there are programs that overlap all the actions that occur in each country. Yes, there are some lone nuts or individuals that do things. But there's also at the same time an overwhelming amount of educated to be hitters, to go wet and take out people. So I don't know. But again, you know, let's go back to Operation Paperclip. A lot of the brainwashing and mind control technology that the Germans had been given was brought over here. And they just continued operating here under different names with new passports. So it's a very big, and I don't know all the components, it's a very big question, but on the surface, does it look like it was done on purpose? I mean, look at the individuals, who they were. They were making change. They were creating an awareness. They were behind a very powerful, or the focal point of a very powerful movement for change, to make things happen, for the betterment of everybody. Okay? And that's, again, that is the pyramidal power structure. You lop off the head, loss of knowledge, it flounders. Somebody can come in, take control, and move it the other way. Then it doesn't exist. So, okay?
Hello, sir. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
First, I wanted to thank you for bringing up a subject that I feel is one of the most important things that we can talk about here at this conference. And as far as I can tell, you're the first person to bring it up. It's the monetary system, the economic system that we predominantly use in this world. What my question is if you or the Andromedans have any insight to offer as far as the transition that we'll need in order to transcend an economic system that posits us in a position of feeling like we need to compete with each other in order to survive, making us feel separated from each other instead of being one.
That's a great question. And let me ask you this back. What are your thoughts on it first?
Obviously,
Okay,
you can tell how I worded my question.
This is about, mentoring is about self-empowerment.
That's right.
Okay? What are your ideas on it first? You know, it's great to ask somebody for their advice when you don't have a clue what you want to do. Okay? But that can wrongly, or to your betterment, influence you. But it's better for you to have some idea about where you stand and why you stand on a particular position or a reason to make a change than to have somebody tell you why. And that's what they want. They want us to come halfway.
I very much agree with that point, as a matter of fact, and I do have a lot of my own opinions regarding how we can do it. I just felt that it was an important subject to bring back up, and I feel that personally it goes back to something that you said regarding the creation of something that doesn't already exist on the world and never has before. And I feel that that's what we need in the form of human interaction.
We can do this. I mean, as souls, when we're not here on Earth, we've been in other civilizations that don't have a monetary system. We have this knowledge within us. We do know. We just don't have access to it at the moment. But we do know. All of us. Okay.
Thank you very much for being here. I'm very inspired by
It's an honor
your message.
for me.
Thank you, and for us too. My question to you is, you spoke earlier about the whole thing of the domain of knowing and, you know, the intention that we have together, and how, you know, at one point there was not this whole human rights. So how can we come together as a group collectively in creating an intention for the world that we want to see? How can we, you know, all of us are asking, what can we do? What can we all do to collectively share our intentions of the world that we want to see, the world that we want to create? They have their intention, but perhaps we need to collectively have ours and align together about the world we envision. And I'm wondering if you have any advice or counsel or mentorship about how we can unite in that way and gather our intentions to create the world we know to be true in our hearts, we know is possible for us to live in, that we remember.
Well, that's the first step. just talking with your friends, people of like mind, okay, just creating that vortex of knowledge, of harmonic, of frequency. And as you begin to talk more and more about it, your group grows. I'll give you an example. The best example that comes to mind is in Colorado. There were a group of women who were the wives of soldiers over in Iraq. And what they did was they formed something called the kitchen militia, okay, where they would all get together, not only share recipes and about rearing children, yada, 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 and sharing information and letters about their spouses overseas, but they would also start talking about different ideas. And some incredible ideas came out of the kitchen militia, and several of them even started companies of ideas that came out, and now they're employing many of the people within the kitchen militia. So it's very simple steps. And again, individually, this doesn't necessarily, I mean, this has to be a grassroots. And all it takes is a focus, a turn of our focus away from the drama and the crap that they want us to focus on the news and CNN, etc., and start thinking about, what is it that I want? What information do I want to know? What do I want to hear? Okay, what information do I want to hear on the news? What kind of neighborhood do I want to live in? Okay, what do I want to talk to my friends about? What's really important to me? And ladies and gentlemen, back in 1993, I was telling everybody to throw their televisions away. I really was. You know, I told you so. Okay? Thanks. I mean, we have one, and we just watch movies, and we choose which movies we want. I do have rabbit ears so that I can watch the election to find out who's going to screw us for the next 4 years. Okay? And that's roughly it. And the Super Bowl. But now I can get that online, so now I don't even have to plug in the rabbit ears. So, you know, you guys know this stuff. You know this stuff. You just have to want it. You just have to want it. You got to want it so bad that you're willing to just do it and say, enough is enough. You do that with your kids. You do that with your neighbors. You do that with your bosses. Now you got to do it about your life. What is it that you really want? Get some clear, distinct ideas about what it is you really want. Because the system we have now is crumbling, and it's going to continue to crumble. All the illusion in the world is not, and it's going to continue to crumble. All the illusion in the world is not going to keep it standing because it's run its course. It's done. So we have to create something else. And we have to, because if we don't, the powers that be will create it for us. And I guarantee you, you will not be free. You won't be free. You won't like it at all. You won't. It's a given, absolute given. Because it's all about them. It's not about you. And as Spock once said, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Next question.
Alex, my name is David Farman. I represent Alienshift, alienshift.com. The page we made for you is between 250 pages, is one of the most visited. Alienshift is about new hope for humanity, and you are one of the, we could call you the new hope for humanity. I want to thank you for all the stuff you've done. Basically, my question is, I'm sorry, you want to say something? It's not about me. It's not about me. It's all about us. And the question I have is about us, the public. Every ufologist, past 30 years I've been watching, they write books and videos and they go home. There is no unity, there is no group that can, how can we create such a 40-man international group that would have a leader like you, for instance, or whoever else want to take the position, and we have our voice with ET and with the people of the earth. You guys are all waiting for governments. Don't do that. Don't do that. We are the governments between humanity and the ET. Do not wait for any governments to help you guys.
Hi. Thanks for coming today. We all appreciate that. I guess a question I have is can you hear me? Can you hear me here? Can I be heard? I kind of have a profound question, or it's somewhat profound, I guess, which is to say that on the one hand, I think that we all want to access knowledge and we want to know what's going on, and that is empowering. On the other hand, it is also true that the more we know, to a certain extent, the more of a target we become. I think that that is just because of the fact, especially the way that we've had a lot of laws that have been passed throughout the world to monitor what people are doing, and I think we all have to be cognizant of that. And I'm asking, what do you think? How can we access? We know that there's powers that are off planet. We know that the matrix itself, or the higher self, is one of purity and strength. How do we access that in the face of the fact that we do put ourselves, I don't know if it's at risk, but that we put ourselves in somewhat of a precarious position, and that we're facing a very, very organized and very strong union across the planet, and how do we get there? How do we empower ourselves? That's what I guess I want to ask.
Okay, let's deal with the first thing you said. I want you to do me a favor, just for a moment. I want you to get down on your knees. No, give him the mic. Just get down on your knees.
Okay.
Okay, I want you to get down on your knees. Yeah, just like that. Look at me. I want you to look at me. Do you
Not
want
what I was expecting, but
do you want to live the rest of your life like that?
No, not particularly. No.
Okay, then stand up. Then stand up. Dude, your eternal soul, all I can do is take this away from you, and you still live. Okay? It's not who we are, it's what we are. As far as forming an organization, it needs to be grassroots, because everything else that becomes a foundation or a corporation, they take over. If it's a grassroots, and everybody in this audience and every citizen around the world, if we start watching each other's back, there isn't jack that they can do to us. There just isn't.
Okay, that was dramatic. Here we go. Thanks.
I got up because I wanted to assert that we are the ground crew. Sorry. I wanted to assert that we are the ground crew, and that we are being mentored, and find out if you disagree with that this is the choir, and that we are being mentored already, whether we've been tapped on the shoulder by someone from another part of the galaxy or not. And that we should stop denying that we are already being mentored, and we already are getting the message of what it is that we need to do.
Well, I think George said it best yesterday, Mr. Green. We are extraterrestrials. You know, we're just trying to reconnect to kin, basically. You know, so yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I don't have any problem with that. The reason for my purpose for reiterating it is knowing that these things go wherever they go, and that there are so many people now coming into this, discovering it for the first time, or at least asking questions, and it's important to bring them on board as quickly as possible, to just have them to plant the seed. Hey, on some level you are already being mentored spiritually, and we just need to bring the physicality and connect that to the spiritual essence of ourselves.
Thank you.
That was my purpose.
Great.
I was just wondering about the nature of the incoming object. You said.
What was the question?
Sorry, I'm a little nervous here.
Nobody will bite you.
Yeah, you mentioned an incoming object, like 22 degrees to Uranus or something.
18 degrees right ascension of Neptune's orbit. All I know is that it's a planetary structure, and it's friendly.
It's not.
But I don't know anything more else about it at the moment. But I know it's friendly.
That works.
Okay, it's not Nibiru.
I have a question, but as I was standing there, I had a realization. You were talking about the holographic kind of system that they've put in place. and that you said that we need to implement that holographic system, and when you said we need to become grassroots, everything has to become grassroots, I got it on an extreme level, that by continuing to share it passionately with absolutely everyone, that we are creating the holographic system that they can't destroy.
That's right. It's impossible.
So, I really got it, thank you.
You're
but
very welcome.
my question is, you were mentioning that the Andromeda have the DNA to be able to remember past lives, and that our DNA is damaged, so we cannot. Do you know of ways in which we can heal our DNA, and would accessing the blueprint of perfect health and healing in our higher self be part of that?
It's a great question. I don't have the answer to that.
Thank you.
And I had to put my glasses on to see who I was talking to.
Okay. Okay, my take on the grassroots thing, and tell me if I'm right, is that even if we're not out talking, if you're doing your spiritual work and in your mind you have a desire for a world that's peaceful and pure and good without the hatefulness and the fear, and you're creating that's the grassroots thing, that there doesn't have to be an organization.
That's exactly right.
Thank you.
You got it. Now, I wanted to bring up something. I've been blessed to have an opportunity to spend some time in Europe. And I was in Switzerland, and we had just come out of a pub, and there were some young men being arrested for some reason. And I will never forget this. As we're standing there watching this happen, one of the young men said to the Swiss police, "You didn't read me my rights." And the cop stopped and goes, "What rights?" He goes, "I got rights. You got to read me the Miranda Act." And this is a Swiss student, okay? A Swiss being, and he goes, "This is Switzerland. You don't have any rights here." Okay? But this young man believed so much in that he was willing to challenge the police officer about it. Okay? And it was a big surprise for him. So you see, the influence that the United States has had on the world is so more profound than any of us realize. And the disappointment is probably equal to that at this point. Okay? Because here we have, the propaganda has been communism, fascism. We have sent young men to war, lost their lives to fight communism and fascism. And in 60 years, we become fascist? What's wrong with this picture? Okay? Sir, 2 more questions and then I'm done.
I wanted to preface this question with just saying again, as I spoke with you in private, it's an honor and a privilege to have you here with us, and thank you for speaking of what you know. And I also wanted to say that I don't want this question to sound in any way hostile to anyone, because it does come from the bottom of my heart, and it's something that has been bothering me for a long time. If we are to move forward and connect all the pieces of the puzzle and move forward into the holographic social structure that you're talking about, where the children know more than the adults, and where all information is given to the young, then why is it that we still, even in disclosure movements and with courageous witness testimony coming forward, people speaking, that there are still certain topics that people are afraid to or will resist talking about, such as the stargates that was mentioned earlier this morning, and other things?
So is your question exactly why there are still some topics people don't want to discuss?
Right. In people who are just courageously stepping forward and risking their lives to speak out about what they know, why is it that do not speak about everything that they do know, and there are still topics that they wish not to speak about?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm also guilty of that. It's a comfort zone, it's a comfort level, and everything has its own timing. What would happen to humanity if the government were to come clean about everything that they know about everything that they know? Could humanity totally deal with it? Probably a portion of humanity could deal with it. The other portion, or portions or groups, could not maybe deal with it, at least in the very beginning, because they have constructed a reality around themselves that is based on perception that is an illusion. And to shatter that all in one swoop can be a disservice to them. The idea is to take people and give them the tools that they need so that they voluntarily begin the process of self-responsibility and voluntary introspection. The information is there, and it's been out there for 50, 60 years. We'll take the UFO community as a whole, exopolitics. More and more people are coming into this. Who's the biggest group now? It's the young people, okay, which is promising. They are, in fact, influencing their parents by having discussions at home. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? So it doesn't matter how it happens as long as it happens. Now, I mentioned Dulce in our conversation earlier. There will be people, I'm sure, who will contact these two to really want to talk about that. And they're going to have to be very careful about how they present the information, because the things that happen there are horrific. Absolutely horrific. And they had to be dealt with, and they were dealt with. However, that element that was behind those atrocities still exists here. Okay? And even I don't want children. And that's as far as I'll go. But now that I've mentioned it, I've created a domain of knowing. Okay? I've just created a domain of knowing. Now each of you will start going out, thinking about that, doing some research to pull that information to you. Because now you want to know. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Last two questions.
My question was actually about children and the disappearance of children, if you're willing to talk about it.
I've said so much about that already. I know that I have been blasted about that, ladies and gentlemen. I absolutely know what I know about the missing children. And I'm not going to apologize for it, and I stand by what I said all those years ago, and I stand by it today.
Okay, could you summarize, because we're aware of this as well, so if you could just, in maybe one sentence.
We have become a natural resource. Very much how we've used cows. We use cows and other animals. We ourselves have become a natural resource. The younger ones are the most desirable because they're not tainted with chemical poisons in their bodies, because they're young. That's all I'm going to say.
Laura Knight Judzik has gone into this in depth, and Rich Dolan has also written a review of her book that's very positive, and Rich has, and Alfred Weber published an article about the subject. So if you want to investigate it further, because it's actually, I just want to augment what Alex is saying here, in the sense that the point is not to give you everything out on a platter, okay? It's for you to understand what's going on. The point is to give you direction. What Alex is doing here is mentoring you, okay? He's giving you indications, and that's what our whistleblowers do, by the way. They don't tell you everything. They don't even tell us everything, but they give us the clues that we need to do the research necessary to find out the truth. And when you hit the truth, it gets you. You can tell. You know it. You want to be in denial, go right ahead. It's out there. The truth is out there. It is unbelievably out there.
Hi, Alex.
Hi.
I'm the last question, obviously. My name is Andres. Please don't take this the wrong way, but I love you, man. My actual question is actually directed to the audience and to you. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind conducting a little mini meditation for all of us to direct our intention to change the future that we want to have. I was wondering if you would like to do that. Thank you.
Ooh, I'm on the spot. Well, this will be a first. I have an affinity for very simple common sense spirituality, which has always led me to the Native Americans. So what I will do is we'll close this with a Native American prayer. And that just happens to be the same prayer that's on the front page here that I have with me, and it's usually always the prayer that I go to. I change the words and make them my own after all these years, but for the purposes of this, it says exactly what I would want to say. Great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds, and whose breath gives life to all in the world. Hear me. I am small and I am weak, and I need your strength and your wisdom. Let me walk in beauty, and let my eyes ever behold the red and purple sunsets that you have created with me. Make my hands respect the things that you have made, and my ears sharp to hear your words and your voice. Let me learn the lessons that you have hidden under every rock and leaf. I seek strength not to be greater than my brother, but to fight my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes, so that when my life fades as the fading sunset, my spirit can come to you without shame. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an absolute honor for me. Thank you so much.